Alright, so this is day 2 of simplifying radicals. It should be easy because I know I'm not here today, but that doesn't mean that your work gets any less important, because keep in mind that your grade is based off of what you get done on the computer. Yesterday we should have come at least closer to mastering the skill of getting perfect squares out of square roots. Today what we're going to look at is how variables are dealt with, so let's do a quick review to show you exactly what's going to be going on. If you remember in your power test that we did, remember you multiply these two numbers, so you ended up with x to the third squared, which is x to the sixth. That was something that we learned a long time ago, if there's a parentheses between two powers that we multiply. We also had a question where we had to rewrite a square root of x with a rational exponent, keeping in mind that that was an invisible 2, knowing that this is a power of 1, and remembering that we wrote this as x to the 1/2. I hope you remember that, but again, that was something that we learned a while ago. Actually just this semester, I believe. Actually, I don't know when it was, but I know you learned it, and I know we took a test on it. But in the end, what we are going to be doing is dealing with this, and doing that, we have to remember that this number ends up on the top, that invisible 2 ends up on the bottom, and we end up with x to the 8 over 2. Well, 8 over 2 reduces to be 8 divided by 2, which is x to the 4th. And if you notice, as it says right here, our only job in this problem really is to divide the exponent by 2, because there's an invisible 2. So we take this number, we divide it by 2, we get our answer there, and that is what comes out. Alright. The only difference today is when the exponent is going to be odd, and in that case we're just going to leave the remaining part inside the radical. So let's look at some examples with just a variable so we can get used to doing everything else we're going to be doing. So looking at this, again, this is a 5, that's a 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. Notice that 2 doesn't go completely into 2, which means that there's still a t left over. So what we do, we know that it's 2. We know that two groups of 2 come out of 5, so it'll be t to the second outside, because that's what 5 divided by 2 is. Two groups of 2 come out, or you could say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in there. Here's a group of 2 that comes out. Here's a group of 2 that comes out. And notice there is still a t left on the inside. So this is what's here. These two is what came out here. Alright, so whenever you divide it, there are two groups of 2 that came out and one t that had to stay behind. Alright, so again, if it's an odd number, just automatically just leave 1 in there. That's pretty much what I'm trying to teach you to understand. Divide it and know that it's 2.5. So there's your 2 and there's your 0.5 right there. So looking at this one, e to the 8th, 8 divided by 2 is 4, so e to the 4th, there's nothing left in. F to the 11th, 11 divided by 2, if you don't know what it is, it's 5.5, which means that 5 comes out. And because it's a 0.5, remember, e is not left because that's an even number that came out clean, but there is still an f left over in there, and so that would be what you would do. Again, 8 divided by 2 is 4, 11 divided by 2 is 5.5. Again, the fractional part, the fact that f is odd, means that there has to be a f still left in there. Or again, there are 11 of those, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of f, and 1 that got left on the inside. So again, if it's an odd number, you simply leave that number in there, or leave that in there. W to the 3rd, x to the 7th. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. That means that 1w comes out and 1w stays. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. It means that 3 x's come out and 1 stays. Again, there is an odd number of w's, which means that w is left over. There's an odd number of x's, which means that x is left over. And that is what we are left with. Again, there are 3 w's. 1 group came out, 1 stayed in. There are 7 x's, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3 came out. 1 got left on the inside. Again, that's pretty much all it is. If there are numbers and variables in there, just pretty much work each part out separately and find your answers all together. So for example, simplify 20x to the 13th. Well, 20 itself can be divided by 4. And so what I do is I go ahead and work that out the same way I would 4 times 5, which means that 2 comes out. Now we know what else comes out, which is 13 divided by 2 which is 6.5, so that means that 6 x's come out. The square root goes. The 5, remember, stayed. And because this is odd, it means that there is another x on the inside there. Again, 4 root 5 turned into 20 turned into 2 root 5. And x to the 13th turned into 6 x's out, 1 x in. That is your stopping point. If you are asked to simplify 72y to the 8th, first thing you do is see that 72 can be not divided by, actually it can be divided by 4, can it? Yep, 4 times 18, so 4 times 18 there, which gives us 2 root 9. 2 root 18. 18 can be 9 times 2, so it's 2 times 9 times 2. Again, keeping in mind 2 stays there, turning into 6 root 2. And so 6 comes out. 8 divided by 2 gives us 4 y's, with a 2 left over on the inside, no y's because that was even and it went out clean. In terms of what you're doing, just make sure you organize yourself, and as long as you do that, you should be able to work your way through problems like this. Just be sure to slow down and things should work out fine. If all else fails, just simply work the problem out as 2 separate problems, which is kind of what I just did and which is what I'm going to do right now. If you watch carefully, I'm just going to separate this into square root of 32 and square root of t to the 5th. I'm going to work both of these out alone. 4 times 8 makes 32, so 4, 8. This 4 turns into a 2 root 8. I can also take a 4 out of 8, so 4 times 2 makes 8, which becomes 2 times 2, which becomes 4 root 2. That is what this turns into. T to the 5th, 5 divided by 2 means 2 t's come out, 1 t stays in. Putting all this together, you get a 4 and a t squared on the outside with a 2 and a t on the inside. And that is honestly the most safe way to do that, is just to separate it and then push it all back together in the end. Because I'm not here today, that means there is no lesson credit portion of it, but your Math Excel assignment is very quick. Actually not quick, it's just very basic. I don't have anything too tough on this, although there are going to be some tough questions. You just got to make sure you're ready for what's there. So go to your Math Excel assignment. Keep in mind this represents 40% of your quarter grade, so allowing yourself not to finish it is setting yourself up for failure. Keep in mind, again, you have to earn your way out of here. I'm not letting you just get an easy grade in your 4th quarter. If you don't do the work, then you will be back here next year, so work as hard as you can so you can get the highest score possible. Other than that, good luck, and I'll be back tomorrow to answer any questions that you have on this.